This time on Roadkill Garage, the Crusher Impala is back and more thrashable than ever.
Hugging turns like never before. Yeah, man.
Oh, we're gonna die.
Yeah, we are.
Crusher Impala is back.
The potential for perfection here, Freiburger, it may elude you, but I'm very, very aware that this car is good and we can make it perfect.
It could be great. Do you remember the last time we had it on an episode? What went wrong?
We didn't have the throttle linkage
I
set
know.
up right.
We've only ever had this thing at part throttle. So what we're gonna do this time is put a 4.9" in the back, dial in the rear suspension, and fix the throttle opening problem. I hope I've got time to put a shifter in the thing.
Yeah.
But the big deal
Make
is
the doors open?
you have to make the doors open because I'm done with that problem.
I'm down with that.
It's gonna be so violent.
Yeah.
Can't wait. I assume that you understand the majesty of the Crusher Impala, but I'll give you a quick history anyway. This is a '69 Chevy Impala, and I bought it years ago for I think $1,200 or $1,500 because we were doing a crossover episode with some guys called Mighty Car Mods out of Australia, and I wanted to show them the biggest, most absurd American car that I could find, and to make it absolutely ridiculous, we took a leftover blown big block that I had from the Crusher Camaro, and we installed it in the Impala, and that's how it became the Crusher Impala. I fell in love, and we just kept going. You've seen episodes of Roadkill where I did things like road trip and shoot out against the Rotson with Mike Finnegan, and won. And later on Roadkill Garage, Dulcich and I rebuilt this engine. It's a 498 cubic inch big block, and it's got the supercharger and everything. The thing is, I don't have any idea what horsepower it actually makes. We took it to the drag strip, and it was running like in the bottom 12s. We're like, what is wrong with this thing? That's kind of poochy. And here's the news. This thing has only had half throttle the whole time the engine's been in the car. Dulcich ended up fiddling with it and got about 75% throttle, and we did make a drag strip pass where it ran 11.75 seconds at 118 miles an hour, but with more power, it's just not getting the traction anymore. So what we're gonna do in this episode is obviously fix the throttle problem, and then we're also gonna put in a quick performance 9" and QA1 suspension in the back and some bigger tires and try and get it to hook.
A super annoying problem with this car is you really can't even get into it because you push the door handle and nothing happens. Why is that? You can see this door has kind of been scrunched right here, and it caused a misalignment of the door handle mechanism. There's a pin that goes out when you push the button, and it's supposed to hit a flag which works the door latch, but it misses. It submarines right under it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this big crescent and just tweak it back the other way, and that'll put that pin back in alignment where it needs to hit. And if I get the angle just right, then it'll work perfectly. Closes good, it's always closed good, but now it actually opens. So that's gonna be way more convenient than crawling through the window or having Freiburger slide across the seat. So, fixed. The next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna pull the scoop off, and then I'm going to visually inspect the throttle plates inside the carburetor, and I'm gonna make sure that they are wide open. All right, Freiburger, you wanna try it? Oh, no, it's not a wide open throttle.
Not even close?
No, but the linkage won't move anymore because it's bottomed.
Are the secondaries open at all?
Yeah, they're open 3/4, and the primary is open 7/8.
Oh, wow. That needs to be better.
Whoa, something else is wrong here, and I don't know what.
Is that arm at BDC?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now. It is at bottom dead center, yeah.
So it's not gonna get more open than that without an adjustment somewhere.
Right. It's gonna take some reworking. It actually needs a shorter link between the bell crank and the carb linkage. Maybe I can cut that down because it's all the way in right now. It's adjustable, but I'll find a solution. All right, Freiburger, you want to try it?
Feels stiffer.
Whoa, didn't do anything. Is that all the way on the floor?
That's it.
It looks like that linkage rod that somebody fabricated is deflecting a bunch.
While Dulcich is working on the linkage, school is in session. We're gonna talk about blower drive ratios and boost. First of all, the whole comedy of errors in this entire disaster is based on the fact that we've never had wide open throttle. And so we had the blower pulley ratio set up for a restricted inlet, and a restricted inlet is a big downer with a supercharger. It has got to gulp as much air as it can to make boost. And what we saw is when we went from like 50% throttle to maybe 75% throttle, the boost went from 5 pounds to 14. That's how big of a difference it makes. So before we go on the chassis dyno and tune this thing up, I want to bring the boost down because I want this thing to run on pump gas. So we need like 5, 6, 7 pounds of boost, something like that. So let me show you how to figure out blower drive ratios. The drive ratio is all about determining how fast you're gonna spin the supercharger. The faster you spin it, the more boost you get. The slower you spin it, the less boost you get, and also the less horsepower drag is in there. So you've got one pulley that is on the crankshaft here that obviously is powering the whole shebang. And that is the engine. It's spinning at engine RPM. It's powering the supercharger. Then you've got an idler, which is this doohickey right here. Don't even consider that. It's not part of the ratio at all. You hate that guy. Then you've got the blower pulley up here. So the way to calculate your ratio is you're gonna take the crank pulley and divide it by the blower pulley. Typically on a Gilmer belt like this, you're gonna do that using the teeth count. In this case, I currently have a 55 tooth on the crankshaft, and the blower pulley it's actually stamped 49. I thought it was 47, but this will work for the sake of the demonstration. So 55 divided by 47 is 1.1702, minus 1 is 0.1702, which means it's currently 17% overdriven. The blower is turning 17% faster than the engine. I'm gonna put a larger pulley on the top, which means that I'll be spinning the blower slower than the engine. I am going to add a 58 blower pulley. So the crankshaft 55 divided by the blower pulley 58 is 0.94827. Subtract 1 and you get 0.051. That means it is 5.17% underdriven. The supercharger is going to be spinning 5% slower than the engine. When you spin the blower slower, you get less boost. When you spin it faster, you get more boost. When you put the smaller pulley on top, you get more boost and higher blower speed. When you put the larger pulley on top, you get less boost and slower blower speed. So I'm gonna change this pulley for a step in the right direction so we can get in a safe zone. Let's see. That was easy. So there is my 49 pulley, and this is a 58. So this is gonna give me that roughly 5% underdrive. There we go. There we go. All right, I'm gonna tighten all those by hand because you don't want that coming off.
Here's the throttle linkage off the belt crank, the gas pedal here, and to clear the blower case, it has this big whoop-de-doo right there, and that leads to a lot of flex. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to lay this over to the side at an angle so that it'll clear the blower case without this offset. I'm also gonna cut this gooseneck portion off of it because it doesn't need that. Pretty simple fabrication, and it's gonna work great. I'm going to bend this with my bare hands. I'm trying to fill a gap that's 3/8 of an inch. Got the linkage modified in a way that I think it's going to work, but I'll find out as soon as I put it in, which is going to be right now. Right there, that's perfection. Okay, Freiburger, you want to try it now? It's wide open, dude. We're good.
Great. It's gonna make way more power. And the better leverage ratio and all the lube and everything, it's way better. I think the next thing we need to do is put the 9-inch in.
Okay.
All right, I'll jack it up. Yeah. Oh, look. It's still got all kinds of dirt fish mud in it. That's awesome. Go to the flashback footage of this thing at Dirtfish. It's fantastic. Here's what we're working on. The full-size GM body like this has a 4-link rear suspension with coils. It's very similar to what you would find in a Chevelle or Skylark or Cutlass or anything like that, or even a Fox Mustang. The difference is that the B bodies, the big Impalas, didn't have as much triangulation into the links, and so it needs something to prevent the rear end from shifting side to side, and so it has a panhard bar on it, sometimes also called a track bar, in order to locate the axle side by side in the car. You can see that when I've fully unloaded the suspension, this tire is almost touching the ground and that one's up in the air. It's torqued over like this, and that's because of that panhard bar. It's pulling this side down, and so you can see how that would be a problem even in drag strip launching. So we will end up installing a adjustable panhard bar. My job now is to tear this thing apart. What we're gonna do is remove the shocks, then remove the panhard bar. Then I should be able to lower the rear end enough to get the rear coil springs out without having them under tension and killing me. And then I'll start to unbolt all of the link arms. This one bolt and it should all come out. There we go, it is freed. Drag her out of there. We had a problem getting the lower control arm out of the car. The nut for the bolt is buried in a hole up in the frame and I couldn't get any kind of wrench on it. And so I had Steve make this tool right here so that I can fish the socket up in there and get this thing out. There we go. Ka-chow. Why would I remove a perfectly good and legendary GM 12-bolt rear end and upgrade to a Ford 9-inch? Well, I've got reasons, and I'm gonna tell you why. This new unit here came from a company called Quick Performance, which I've never used before. Now, let me talk about not only the beef, but also the convenience. The big reason why I want a Ford 9-inch is I've got like half a dozen cars that have these axles in them, and the center section drops out with the gears and everything. And so I have a whole bunch of gear sets, a whole bunch of different differentials that I can mix and match and move to different cars at any time I like. So for me, that's a huge benefit of having a Ford 9-inch. The 12-bolt, unfortunately, is nowhere near as easy to change gears on, but there's also elements of beef that you've got to go with. The 12-bolt has C-clip axles, which means if it breaks an axle right here, the axle retention is in there and the wheel and tire comes off the car. The Ford 9-inch has positively retained axles, 4 bolts out here at the end, so if you break an axle, the wheel and tire stays on the car, and that's actually an NHRA requirement for vehicles with slicks. Also, if you're gonna upgrade a 12-bolt, you need to do things like weld the tubes, sometimes get thicker tubes, and this has all of that stuff already. Also, the guys at Quick Performance recommended a back brace on this thing because they knew that eventually I'm gonna put like 1,000 horsepower in this car. Also, I upgraded to a billet 1350 U-joint yoke, which is another thing that would have to be added to the 12-bolt. That 1350 U-joint's just much bigger and beefier. As far as gears, I ordered this with 3.50-to-1 gears. Now remember, I'm not really interested in this being an ultimate drag racing car. I still want it to cruise the highway. I still want it to do burnouts for big distance, and that's why it doesn't have like a 411 in it. It does have 35 spline axles. Remember, a stock Ford 9-inch can be 28 or 31. Once again, Quick Performance said this car is big, heavy, makes a lot of power. You gotta have a 35 spline axle. And I didn't realize that you can actually get an Eaton True Track for these for 35 spline. You didn't used to be able to, but that's what I got in there is the True Track. This thing is a direct bolt-in. They had all of the tabs and everything for the B body, so we should be able to swing this right in there. I am gonna need a new drive shaft, so let's get to work. Once again, you're questioning me. I know it. You've seen the Crusher Impala launch. You've seen that wicked squat and then pulling the front tires like that much. You're like, why would you mess with the rear suspension? Well, the thing is, we know that we have finally overpowered what's available for traction on our stock suspension with our little tires. And so I'm gonna be installing new stuff, and I'm gonna tell you exactly why. All the new parts that I have here are from QA1, and let's just talk really quickly about what I'm doing. First of all, the coil-over shocks. We've talked about these so many times. They're simple to install. You can adjust your ride height really easily, and these billet shocks are double adjustable for compression and rebound, which will help me tune on the drag strip. They're also lighter than the factory coil springs and shocks combined. Control arms. This is a stock control arm. These are flimsy as a noodle and will bend around when you're launching. The tubular ones are much beefier, so that eliminates a flex point. The bigger deal is going to be in the upper control arm. QA1 sells these both non-adjustable and adjustable, which is what this is. Non-adjustable one's fine for your street car. But if you want to go drag racing, I really recommend the double adjustable one like this, because you can install it in the car, and that has benefits like being able to adjust your pinion angle, which is huge, and also being able to preload the chassis a little bit on the right-hand side. You would take the right upper control arm and twist it, and you can establish that preload so you don't have to run like an airbag or a football or something inside your coil spring like guys sometimes do. We're gonna bolt all this stuff on and cross our fingers and hope that it's better. We got all the control arms hung in the car and we shoved the rear end in, and now we're just aligning bolt holes. Control arm bolts are in. Next thing I think is the coilover shocks. And more. Done. See these new flexible bags you can get for gear oil? Just squeeze that snot in there. Let's see. It's been a while, but yes, this is a Roadkill Garage Zip Tie Moment Mega Edition, because I am the Zip Tie Jedi. So here's the thing. I find it perfectly acceptable to use a giant zip tie to retain brake lines onto the back of a rear end housing. See, here's the thing. If your brake line is on the back of the housing, then when you use a tie-down strap for a trailer, you don't have it on the front side and have somebody smash your brake line. So what you want to do is just break out your giant zip tie and ramrod it and put your brake line right there. And there you go. That is your Roadkill Garage Zip Tie Moment Mega Edition. Hi there. You ever see Joe Namath in that ad for pantyhose? That's what I feel like right now. It's the perfect pose to install the panhard bar. I showed you this on the stock suspension. This is the thing that locates the axle side to side in the car. There's a mount up here on the frame, another one over there on the axle. So once this gets installed, we're gonna have to take some measurements at ride height and make sure that the rear end is centered.
I don't know why a new drive shaft always makes me feel so happy.
Me too. Man, Mike from Driveline Service in Fresno always dials us in with the drive shafts on fast turnaround. We actually really appreciate it. This one's a 3.5 incher, which he suggested for beef. It's got 1350 U-joints and a billet yoke on the other end. Now we're at the point where we can adjust the suspension. Here's what my process is gonna be. Set the thing down. We will first establish the ride height with the coil-over shocks. Second, I will adjust the upper control arms to get the pinion angle where we want it. And finally, we will measure to make sure that the axle is perfectly centered as adjusted by the panhard bar. And finally, my happy place, which is the dish mag. Yes, this right here is a US Indy mag wheel. It's a U101. It's a 15x8 with 4-inch back spacing. My Hoosier Slick here is a 29x10. This is gonna like fill out the wheel well and look rad. Here's the other thing a lot of people don't consider, which is, you know, traction with a slick. People always think width, but height actually helps also, because when you air it down, you get a longer contact patch. If it's a smaller diameter tire, you get a smaller contact patch. The big deal here is gonna be to find out if it actually fits. Okay, yeah, the tire's even tighter to the outside here, and it has more distance to the frame, so it's off a little bit. We're gonna have to jack it up to simulate the ride height, and then I think Dulcich is gonna have to do the Dulcich body work that he does.
I think you're good.
It's not awesome, but it'll be functional.
I think it's terrific.
I think we can't drive down the street this way, but drag strip will be fine. Final mod, I'm gonna install a QA1 sway bar on the back of this thing, and that might seem a little unusual because I kind of want to go drag racing with the thing, but the thing is, a lot of drag cars these days do use a rear sway bar to prevent that, you know, this kind of action, like this car does. You know it squats in the right rear, and the thing is, I'm concerned about this tire clearance, and so I'm thinking that sway bar might help that, might even help the launch, not sure. But the other thing is, remember, I keep telling you, this car is not all about drag racing. I also want to hoon the thing and drive it on the street, and importantly, this is gonna help with donuts, and it looks like it installs really easy. Okay, that looks pretty good to me, right?
Looks pretty good to me.
Install it. The rear suspension is done, and now we're gonna get into something I honestly really didn't want to do. We're gonna replace the front suspension. Thing is, I love this 50-year-old worn out garbage, and it just led to those great launches at the drag strip. But unfortunately, it is wasted. The bushings on this control arm are completely puked out. It won't hold in alignment. You do not want to drive this thing 120 miles an hour. So we're gonna go ahead and put QA1 control arms on this and also coilovers. I'm not gonna put a front sway bar, which is gonna make this thing handle funky. It's gonna be so tail happy, but it's gonna be great. All right, we're gonna rip this apart, and I'm gonna make Dulcich do it with fire. Unpredictably, I actually read the directions for this new whiz-bang suspension. I just want to make sure there weren't any fiascos that I could actually foresee. And I learned something really cool. Look how the stock suspension on the Impala has one lower control arm that's just in a straight line, and then it uses a strut rod to the front to control that fore and aft movement on the control arm. What the QA1 does is converts the thing to an A-arm lower control arm, and this leg right here is going to end up going through the hole that the strut rod originally went through on the frame. Kinda cool. The critical thing now is shredding this thing apart. Ow! Ah! Smashed my finger. Bad.
Get the springs out the easy way. What I'm gonna do is heat them up to get the tension out of them, and then I can safely just cut them in pieces and extract them.
Ah! That is gonna hurt tomorrow.
That was bone crushing.
Uh-huh.
Oh!
Yeah, bleeding everywhere.
Yeah, you're bleeding.
Yeah, it really hurts too. I bled all over the hammer. Let me get that off there. Get it?
Yeah. Okay, David, I've got one side in. That's a better position.
We are close to done. Steve's got the whole suspension buttoned up. I'm gonna put the wheels and tires on, then we have a couple of bolts in the front that need to be tightened once there's weight on the car, and then we're gonna cross our fingers and hope that the ride height is correct. If not, we will be adjusting. This wheel and tire is another slot mag. This one is a 15x7 with 3 3/4 inch back spacing, and to fill the wheel well, I got a pretty tall tire. It's a 225/70/15. Go for it.
I get to steal the thunder.
Yep.
Here we go.
I bet you won't be able to get the jack out.
I will.
Ooh, no. Is it good? Once it settles?
Could be worse.
Oh, I hit the bump stop.
I know.
It'll need a shock adjustment.
It's low.
It's probably okay. I mean, it needs the alignment really badly.
Are you sure you're not just saying that so you don't have to adjust it?
I might be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's put the other lug nuts on, get out of here. Welcome to our not-so-secret windy mountain road test facility. It's been like 3 weeks since we were in Dulcich's garage and we installed the Quick Performance 9-inch, the QA1 suspension, and first of all, we went and got the front end aligned professionally, so that's really good. Second of all, with QA1, I was talking to him about this front suspension design. Remember how the strut rod has been replaced with the lower control arm that has the strut rod sort of integral in position? And we were looking how it doesn't have a whole lot of droop to it. It's definitely not a drag race, big weight transfer kind of suspension. Unfortunately, that is what they were stuck with design-wise on these cars. If you wanted to fabricate, you could put a Heim joint in the front of that. It'd probably be better for drag racing. But that's not what we're doing right now. Instead, we are gonna check out the windy mountain performance, which brings me to the third update of stuff that went down over the past 3 weeks. And it's actually something that didn't happen. We didn't fix the power steering. Remember when we first assembled this car and drove it from LA all the way to San Diego with no alternator? Well, sort of following that tradition, over the past year or so, we have had no power steering on this car because the box leaked so badly that it was puking on the drag strip once, and I just cut the power steering belt off. Well, we've never had time to fix that, so we're gonna be testing our suspension with really, really heavy steering. There's nothing worse than a power steering box with no juice hooked up to it, but that's what's gonna happen. All right, let me gather up my buddy Steve Dulcich, and we're gonna hit the road, make some tire smoke, make some twisties, and tell you how this QA1 suspension actually works. Okay, normal.
Those burnouts. Yeah, it's a workout driving non-power steering on a power steering car.
It's the absolute worst. I don't know why we did this, especially since knowing what I know now and knowing from what I've driven the thing so far, I thought I was improving the drag racing prowess of the Crusher Impala when in fact, I think we really helped the handling and overall ride quality of the car.
Oh no, it glides over bumps like nothing. And the other thing is, it hugs the road. Before it used to wallow like crazy.
It really did. It wallowed a lot, which was kind of the charm of it, but it definitely drives way better now. Power steering aside, I will say it's weird that we've got a rear sway bar and no front. When we're driving these mountain roads like this, I can actually feel it. It's sort of wallowy in the front. I haven't pushed it hard enough to know, but I'm sure that the rear end would come around just like that on this car if you really tried to be aggressive.
Oh yeah, but the front end to me seems pretty flat.
Well, look at that. I mean, I'm having to work the wheel a lot, but it's really pretty good.
I know.
I don't think it's gonna do wheelies at the drag strip anymore because it doesn't have that ridiculous just toss.
Well, that's because the whole thing was on pillows before.
It was,
yeah,
those springs were shot.
What really surprises me is that the suspension is pretty tight, but you go over a washboard or speed bumps or something like that, and it just smooths them out.
It does, it eats it right up, almost like a trophy truck over speed bumps.
Yeah.
I feel like the suspension is not the direction I was initially headed with the car.
No.
but I feel that it actually really improved the car overall.
No, it was like a bonus, unexpected surprise, right?
The thrashability of it, I think, has grown up a lot. I think you can really drive this car hard now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So basically this car is hideous, but I have it now at a pretty high level of refinement for just destructive driving.
Oh, mechanically, it's quite a machine, right?
If it had power steering, it would be.
Yeah, we've got to take care of that at some point.
Overall, I'm saying win. How about you?
Oh yeah, I mean, a whole new suspension transforms a car.
Completely. The thing we don't know yet, though, is how does it really run at wide open throttle? How does it handle on dirt? And how does it handle at the drag strip? What are we going to do about that?
We're going to have to find out.
On the next episode of Roadkill Garage.
Now, you know what? If we had a group of mechanics, they could be working the night shift, putting that rear end in and the suspension, and then we can say that it installed itself. How about that?
No, we could just claim we did it ourselves even though we didn't touch it.
That's a little behind the scenes goodness of how we make the greatness happen right here on Roadkill Garage.
And you may think that I am luxuriating in the Crusher Impala here, but in fact, my Star Wagon is right outside.
Oh, yeah.
I had to fall to lose it all, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. One thing, I don't know why, it doesn't even matter how hard you try. Keep that in mind, I designed this rhyme to remind myself how I tried so hard.